Welcome back to the Making the Madness YouTube channel. Before we get into the video, I want to remind you to subscribe to Making the Madness on YouTube. Help the channel grow. And now on to the show. Welcome back to the Making the Madness YouTube channel. Today we are going to continue our team preview series by talking about the Illinois Fighting Illini.
The starting five for the Fighting Illini this season will look like point guard Trent Frazier. At the 2, you have Ayo Dosunmu, a potential National Player of the Year. At the 3, Adam Miller. At the 4, DeMonte Williams. And rounding out the starting 5, you have Kofi Coburn.
For this, starting 5, I think the key player obviously will be Ayo Dosunmu. He's just going to be fantastic this year. Obviously, in the past, he's struggled a little bit shooting, but he can really just do it all. We obviously both expect him to have a huge season. Your thoughts on Ayo this season?
Yeah, I mean, Ayo Dosunmu is one of the craftiest scorers you'll find in college basketball. I always expected him to kind of come back. Just seemed like the way it was trending, and when he decided to come back, it kind of cemented the Fighting Illini as a potential national champion. He had 16.6 points per game last season, while shooting a very good 48% from the field. Only 29% from deep, though. That dropped from 35% in his freshman season. I expect it to go back up into the 30s, maybe 33, 34%. And he will have another very good season. He's also a pretty solid defender. He's just a good all-around player.
Yeah, and obviously he's going to pair perfectly with Kofi Coburn, who's just a physical presence down low. He just so big, 7 feet, 280, can just score inside at will. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Udoka Azubuike type, where he's just like can overpower people. If he can work on his mobility, which I think is something he'll definitely do, I look for Coburn to have a huge season this year.
Yeah, Coburn is a physical beast. He's 7 foot, 280, 290, pure muscle pretty much. He probably doesn't have an ounce of fat in his body. He's just a huge dude, huge hands, which his hands are gigantic, which helps him, catch the ball, I guess, even though that's kind of an issue for him at points last season. But, work on catching the ball better a little bit. But maybe just becoming more of an all-around offensive player rather than someone who can just get to the basket and kind of use his strength down low, maybe get some more moves down low, and maybe add a mid-range shot to his repertoire. He shot in the high 60s from the line last season, but he has a pretty smooth stroke for someone his size. If he could add a mid-range to his game, that'd be huge. Be a little, just more consistent overall, and I think he'll have a very good season. Could be an All-American.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And you're talking about like 1-2 combos. It doesn't really get better this year in college basketball than Dosunmu and Coburn. Those two are just absolute monsters. Then you have the point guard position. I think Trent Frazier's, he is kind of who he is at this point, but who he is a really good third scorer for this team. He can, shoot it from threes. Not an elite shooter, but can definitely do that. Can run the point guard and plays really well. Can let Ayo run the ball. He can play a little bit off ball, can play on ball. I think Frazier's just a good player, and he's someone that's due for another good season.
Yeah, Frazier is a really good player. He had a down season last year shooting, but he became a really good on-ball defender. I'm really not sure, but I think it was confidence related probably because he's been such a good shooter throughout his career. He only had 9 points a game last season, but he had 13 2 seasons ago while shooting 40% from deep in 2018-2019. That dropped down to 30% this year. And he kind of became more of a national name in that Gonzaga game a few seasons ago when he had 29 points in a 6-point loss to the heavy favorited Zags, who ended up going pretty deep in the tournament before losing to Texas Tech. I think Trent Frazier will have a big-time bounce-back season shooting-wise, and he'll be a good complement to Ayo and Kofi.
Definitely. And then plugging in here, kind of the 3/4 players, Adam Miller, DeMonte Williams. We'll start with Williams. I think he's just kind of a do-it-all glue guy. He's, a little bit undersized, but he plays really well within the system. He can step out and shoot threes, and obviously, he's someone that, while undersized at 6'3", kind of rebounds a little bit better than what his size is. He can kind of step in and play like a little bit bigger than what he is, and he's also kind of mobile. Can kind of create a mismatch for kind of a traditional four.
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to see Williams become a little bit more of a scorer. Only 2.8 points a game last season. That's not why they have him. It's for his elite defense. He's one of the best defenders in college basketball. Can really defend 1 through 4, and he's only 6'3", so you might be looking at that saying, well, can he really play the 4? The answer is yes. They played a lot of really, 4-guard lineups last year with Andres Feliz, who's no longer with the team, Io, Trent Frazier, and DeMonte Williams. Well, Williams is listed as a guard. He's kind of a positionless player, which is what a lot of coaches look for in today's game. If he can go to like 5 points a game, he'll be one of the best glue guys in college basketball, if he's not already.
Yeah, and then obviously filling out the starting 5 will be Adam Miller. He's a 4-star prospect. Look for him to kind of come in. I look for him to kind of be a scorer, fill in kind of that Alan Griffin mold where he can kind of be a 3-and-D player. Certainly it'll be hard to exactly fill in that perfectly, but I think he's going to be a good player for the Illini.
Yeah, Miller played with Io DeSumo growing up a little bit in high school, I believe. So the familiarity there should make for a pretty seamless transition to the college game. Just since they know each other already, they probably play together a lot already this offseason, just getting ready for the season. But Miller is a good scorer. He's known as a shooter, and that's the kind of role he'll play for this team. In a couple of seasons, he'll probably lead the Illini in scoring. But for this season, he'll just be another player who can knock down a couple shots.
Moving on to the bench, we have Georgi Bashanishvili, Andre Curbelo, the D3 transfer, Austin Hutcherson, Jacob Grandison, a transfer from Holy Cross, and then a recruit in Coleman Hawkins. This bench looks to be, pretty solid. Obviously, headlined by Bashanishvili, who I think will probably just play more off the bench going forward. I think probably limited role, maybe 15, 20 minutes a game. I think he's going to, he'll be someone that comes in, can kind of score at some points, especially when Coburn goes down with foul trouble or something like that. Obviously not the role he had as a freshman, but Bashanishvili can definitely help out the team.
For sure, Bashanishvili started at the 5 as a freshman, and then when they added Coburn for Bashanishvili's sophomore year, they tried to play. Brad Underwood tried to play them together at the start of the year, and it just didn't work. Bashanishvili just couldn't really play the 4 consistently, and throughout the year, his role really deteriorated into being not much more than a 13-minute guy per game, really just filling in some backup center minutes. He had 12.5 points as a freshman with 54% shooting from the field, with 5.2 rebounds, and that dropped all the way to 6.8 points per game and 4.8 rebounds this season. Just watching him, it was really a struggle for him. He's always kind of dealt with a lot of foul trouble throughout his career, too. He's just someone that I think needs to play good minutes in short spurts to really provide something for this team. I think he could have a bounce-back season, but confidence was really an issue for him last season. And only shooting 42% as a big man is pretty terrible. That's really going to have to go up this season.
Definitely. And then kind of a slew of additions to the team. I know you talked to Armani Sethi earlier this offseason, and he really raved about Andre Curbelo, the freshman coming over. He talked about how he's expecting him to be an instant impact player. I would expect kind of the same thing for him this season. Obviously, we would probably, I think most people would project Adam Miller in the starting lineup, but Curbelo could definitely see the starting lineup, especially later in the season as well.
Yeah, until I spoke to Armand a couple months back, I didn't really have Curbelo on my radar as much of a guy that was going to play big minutes, but he really rose up the ranks in his senior season, and he really put my eye on him a little bit more. he's just a scrappy player. It seems like he's 6'1", 170, so not exactly huge size wise, but he's a smart player, and he kind of likened him a little bit to Andres Feliz, who now graduated. I think Curbelo, if something happens to Frazier, DeSumo, he's going to pick up a huge role. But even if that doesn't happen, he can still carve out a good 15 or so minutes a game as a smart player off the bench when needed.
Definitely. Then there's D3 transfer Austin Hutcherson. Comparisons have been made to Duncan Robinson. He just can come in, he can shoot the lights out, and honestly, you're looking at a sixth, seventh man on a team to come in and do that. Uh, that's your guy. He can just come in, lights out shooter, and if he can do that, that's going to be huge for Illinois.
Yeah, definitely. Hutcherson was like the Michael Jordan of D3 basketball when he played there. I believe for two seasons. He had 28 game and 5.6 rebounds in his sophomore season before transferring. Led his division, the whole entire country, or his country of D3 basketball, in 3-pointers, scoring, and free throw percentage. That's just a pure scorer with the talent to just like you said, shoot the lights out of the building. And that will be exactly what he's expected to do on this team. Last season, the Illini kind of lacked shooting with Frazier and DeSumo struggling from deep. Alan Griffin was a guy who picked up the slack there at over 40%, but he's now off at Syracuse. They'll need Hutcherson to kind of play that Alan Griffin role to some extent. He's, kind of the same position. He's listed as a guard, but he can also play the wing. He has pretty good size. I think overall he's like more well-rounded version of what Duncan Robinson was at Michigan. It might take him some time to get into that role, kind of, maybe more what Robinson was as a senior at Michigan. But I think that Hutcherson will definitely play a big role for this team.
Yeah, and then moving on, the Holy Cross transfer Jacob Grandison, as well as Coleman Hawkins, will kind of fill out the bench rotation. I don't expect either of those players to play a whole lot. I think there's a solid 8. Maybe Grandison can sneak in to make it a solid 9-man rotation. But I definitely think the 8 previously mentioned are kind of what I would go with as the team. But obviously Grandison and Hawkins can kind of provide some additional depth.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a big fan of Grandison. He's another guy like Austin Hutcherson, who is a 2/wing kind of guy. He, at Holy Cross, was pretty good. He had 13.9 points per game his sophomore season in the Patriot League. He shot 36% from deep. I think he'll play, a solid role. I do think it'll be a 9-man rotation for the most part. If something happens injury-wise, he could find a way in the starting lineup at some point. Or if Adam Miller struggles early, I could see him picking up some of Adam Miller's minutes. But Grandison kind of, you know what you're getting. You're getting a good scorer, and that's what he's going to provide for this team. But with Coleman Hawkins, you're right. I don't think he'll play all that much. He's 6'10", probably more of a project than anything. But if Bashanis really struggles this season, he'll probably lose all of his minutes to Hawkins.
Definitely.
Some key departures for this Fighting Illini team from last season. You have 2 guys who graduated, Andres Feliz and Kipper Nichols, and then you have 2 guys who opted to transfer following the season, and Alan Griffin, who received a waiver to play at Syracuse, and Tevian Jones, who transferred to Southern Utah.
Yeah, definitely. I think the 2 big ones are obviously Andres Feliz and Alan Griffin. Feliz was kind of that third guard. He kind of paired with Frazier to make kind of a 3-guard, 3-headed monster at the guard position. And I think Feliz, he brings a lot, obviously, defensively, can kind of score a little bit offensively. I think he's just a really good overall guard, and not having him on the team, I do think they can make it up. Obviously, they have so much talent with Adam Miller, Andre Curbelo, Austin Hutcherson, that I think they can make it work. But Feliz, I think, will be kind of one of the 2 big ones from the departures here.
Yeah, definitely. Andres Feliz, he's a JUCO guy. He came into Illinois in 2018, 2019. I didn't see him playing the type of role and becoming what he was last season. He's really the unsung hero of that Fighting Illini team. He had 11 points a game, 5 rebounds as a guard, a 6'2" guard at that, with 2.9 assists per game, shooting 46% from the field, only 27% from deep, and 76% from the charity stripe. He's a really good player. He's one of those hard-nosed guys who would look for contact down low, try to get to the line. He didn't back away from anybody. He tried to draw charges. He's like Brad Davison without trying to injure other players. So that's, he's a very good player for the team, and he'll be someone that's very much missed.
Yeah. I think the word you're looking for is gritty. But
Gritty, yeah.
Definitely a gritty guard, very tough-nosed. And then there's Alan Griffin, who didn't start but was kind of a pivotal piece. He came in, he shot the lights out, over 40% from three, 41.6 to be exact. He at 6'5" is just kind of that perfect 3-and-D guy that you're looking for it, honestly, not only at the college level but at the NBA level as well. I think he was a perfect fit. Losing him, I think, will be big offensively, but I think they have brought in the pieces to kind of replace him more so than maybe they brought in pieces to replace Feliz.
Yeah, absolutely. Alan Griffin, shockingly enough to me, BartTorvik.com, one of the best college basketball websites you will find, has a lot of advanced statistics and things of that nature. It had him, and this is in 18 minutes, so take it with a grain of salt, I guess. But it just showed how good Griffin was in his role. He had the fourth best box plus minus, which kind of just takes everything you do, offense, defense, and adds it together, some formula. But he was behind these guys. Obi Toppin won National Player of the Year. Xavier Tillman, who was first team All Big Ten, I believe, and Killian Tilly, who was an All West Coast Conference player at Gonzaga. So, that's pretty good company to be in. Griffin shot 40% from deep last season. And, well, I said Feliz was one of the unsung heroes of this Illinois team. So is Griffin. Losing him's going to hurt a lot, but they can kind of supplement some of that with getting Hutcherson and Grandison and Adam Miller. So, I think it was kind of a good decision on both sides. I think Griffin would have started for this team over Miller, but he wanted to go closer to home, go play for Syracuse, and that Syracuse team with Joe Girard, Buddy Boeheim, and Alan Griffin has the best trio shooters in college basketball.
Can't disagree there. Kipper Nichols, I think he was someone that just was kind of in the program for a long time, and he just kind of stayed the same. He was kind of like a glue guy. I think he was good. In 2017 he averaged 10 points per game. That Illinois team was not very good in 2017, and then kind of just saw his role diminish as time went along. I think he averaged close to 10, 15 minutes a game last season. Really just his role kind of diminished. What he is as a player just kind of, wasn't what Illinois needed in the future. And, I think he tried to make it work, but ultimately, you look at players and, he's someone 6'6" guys that can't shoot. Isn't really a skill set that's needed in today's, basketball.
Yeah, Kipper Nichols, like you said, he was good in 2017, 2018, but really faltered off later in his career the last 2 seasons. Lost minutes to Bashanesville, lost minutes to Coburn, just kind of, became a non-factor for the most part. And you're right, he's just not a shooter. He's a forward that can't shoot. He shot 42% from the field in 2018, 2019, 38% from the field this season. It's no shocker. He only played 13 minutes a game. He's a solid defender, but that offense was dreadful. So it's, he kind of really just became a non-factor for this team.
And it does say key departures in here. This one probably not all that key. Tevian Jones, he is off. He has transferred, averaged less than a point per game, played 5.3 minutes per game, 13 games total. He's a departure. I don't know if it's going to be that impactful. Maybe team chemistry is about the best he brought to the team because on the court he wasn't really much of anything. No disrespect.
Yeah, Tevian Jones is tall. I'll say that. He's tall, and I can't gather much more information about him because there's no information to have because he didn't play. So,
He played less games than Tyler Underwood.
oh, that's the coach's son treatment right there.
Yep. And got
Tyler Underwood probably had more points per game, too.
That is not the case. Tyler Underwood only had 0.6.
Tough.
So the final thing to wrap it up about Illinois will be, what can they do this upcoming season? Can they win the Big Ten? What can they do in the NCAA Tournament? Can they win a national championship? Let's start with the Big Ten, though, first. I currently would put them in the Tier 1 category in terms of Big Ten favorites. I think them, Wisconsin, Michigan State are kind of the three teams I identify. I would lean with Illinois winning the Big Ten. They were really good in Big Ten play, seemed to figure it out last season. I think they're probably the favorites to win the Big Ten for this season.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that sentiment right there. Illinois, I have as the third best team in the country. Well, that's an unpopular opinion due to Villanova and Baylor. I have them slightly ahead of Villanova. I just like this team a lot. There's a lot to like there with Io, Dosunmu, Kofi Coburn, Trent Frazier. We've already been into that in depth. But then we look at the Big Ten. You have Wisconsin, who the style that Greg Gard plays doesn't really allow a player to be a star, other than Ethan Happ a couple of years ago, I guess. But Wisconsin's a good team. The continuity is something you cannot teach. They have 5 guys who are seniors in the starting lineup with Brad Davison, Demetri Trice, Aleem Ford, Micah Potter, and Nate Reavers. But the bench is, a little bit of concern with them. Michigan State, they have some question marks down low. I mean, no Xavier Tillman. Can Marcus Bingham step up and be something? I feel like he has some of the physical tools that he just needs to bulk up a little bit to be something more. Obviously, losing Cassius Winston is a problem, and Rocket Watts will have to, jump into that role and be something there. And I'm not huge on Iowa. That defense is terrible. So I just, not as high on them. I have them top 25, but, closer to the 20s than I do the 10s.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with anything said there. I just think with Illinois, they're probably the most complete team in terms of like a basketball team. They have that superstar player that like a Wisconsin doesn't have, a Michigan State doesn't have. In fact, they have two, you can argue, two superstar players that might be the best player on either one of those two teams. Brad Underwood, I think, is a really good coach. I think he sometimes gets, doesn't get enough credit for what he's been able to do not only at Stephen F. Austin, not only at Oklahoma State, but here at Illinois, kind of turning the program around really quickly. I think he's a really good coach, and I think this Illinois team, they have obviously the superstars, but they have the good role players to built in next to them. So I think this is an Illinois team that I would currently peg as the favorite in the Big Ten.
Yeah, definitely. And when you can go 9 deep with any player, with any team, that's huge.
And then as for the NCAA tournament, I just think the ceiling is, limitless. Obviously, I would kind of still say Gonzaga, Baylor, even Villanova, I think would peg as, a little bit better teams, but certainly you get some upsets, obviously, and you have a situation where the NCAA tournament is, wide open and looking for a team, and when you have, the best guard, for the majority of the games that Illinois will play, it will have the best player on the court with Ayo Dosunmu. It will have the best big man on the court in Kofi Coburn. When you have two elite players like Illinois has, you can go out and win 6 games in March, and I do think it would be a big step up considering Underwood has not made past the second round in as a coach before, but certainly I'm not ruling anything out, and I think Illinois could make a Final Four run this year, and I would definitely not rule it out.
Yeah, I absolutely think Illinois can win a national championship. They have their best chance at doing it since Darren Williams was back. I believe 2004, 2005, they made a Final Four run, and I think got destroyed in that Final Four. I was, 2 years old, or 3 years old, I guess, almost. So, I wasn't watching that game. I mean, maybe I was, just not coherent enough at that point. But speaking of this Illinois team, you're right. Gonzaga, I have as far and away the best team. You have Drew Timme. You follow my Twitter, you know what I think about Drew Timme. Corey Kispert, probably the best wing player in the country. Joel Ayayi and Jalen Suggs as guards. And then you have Anton Watson, Julian Strother to, be the four. Maybe Umar Ballo at some point. And a really good bench, too. Just so much talent on that team. Obviously, Villanova and Baylor right up there. And I wouldn't sleep on Kansas. Kansas, once again, has a very good team with Marcus Garrett, Bryce Washington, Tyon Foster Grant, I believe.
Grant Foster.
And Grant Foster, see, that was close. And then David McCormick might be the most underrated player in the country. He was pretty good when he played last season. He will need to be good this season without Udoka Azubuike. And I think he's a great player. Silvio De Souza, he's there for what feels like his 9th season. He's been suspended for more games than he's played, but maybe he could be something. But those are kind of 5 teams I think are really good. And obviously you see like Kentucky, if Olivier Sarr can secure that waiver, which I believe he will. There's a lot of good teams in college basketball this season, but I would say the 4 that are in a tier of their own is Gonzaga, Baylor, Villanova, and Illinois.
Yeah. So we definitely are on the same boat. This is season, high expectations for Illinois, but they certainly deserve them, and they can live up to them. They could potentially cut down the nets in Indianapolis, hopefully in front of 80,000 fans.